Hello and welcome back everyone to the Builder Stage. We're really happy that you're here. And we are now going to be speaking with Arun Saigal, who is the co-founder and CEO of Thunkable, not Thinkable, Thunkable, a drag and drop tool that allows anyone to create beautiful native mobile applications. Arun will be walking us through his view on why no code can help build a more equitable society and a more diverse technological workforce. After his talk, we'll have a few minutes for Q&A, so please be sure to get your questions in. And that question and answer is right next to the chat tab in your Pine application. Arun, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that. And big thanks to the whole Zeroqode team, Vlad and Levon and Bess and everybody who's put it together. This has been such a fun day already, and I'm excited for what the rest of today and tomorrow holds. And with that, hello and welcome everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here today and tell you a little bit more about Thunkable and how we and the world of no code are working to create a more equitable future and an equitable set of builders. So today I have the great pleasure of speaking to you, like I said, both about kind of Thunkable, but about also how do we create equity through no code. So this is a little bit of kind of what the overview of what I'll be speaking about in the next few minutes is. And with that, let's just get right in. So if you Google no code landscape, you'll find a whole bunch of different slides of what goes on. There is a whole amazing world of no code today. And this is, just one example of what the landscape looks like. Everything from web apps to mobile apps to make apps to docs to make apps. It's really quite amazing what all is going on in the world of no code today. But this isn't always where we've been. So first off, I'll highlight kind of what we look like today, and I'll talk about Thunkable, and there will be a lot of messages from Thunkable that will be kind of broader, and then I'll give a little history of actually how we got to here. So it all started with this question that only 1 in 1,000 people can or will learn how to code an app. 1 in 1,000. That is a very, very small number. When you think about how many people are out there in the world, how many people are attending colleges, 1 in 1,000 is a pretty small number. And this really motivated us. About 12 years ago, I was at MIT working on a collaboration with Google. I had been involved in low code and no code mobile and general app building for a while, working on projects like Lego Mindstorms and MIT Scratch. And through all of it, we said, hey, there's this future coming about, this future with apps. iOS had just come out, the iPhone had just come out, Google was about to release Android. And we said, wouldn't it be amazing if anyone could build their own apps? If there were no constraints on who you were, where you were from, how much money you had, whether or not you had time to go to the office. And instead, if you had access to the internet and you had an idea, you should be able to build an app. So a research group at MIT that I was a part of and a research group at Google that I was later a part of teamed up and formed this product that became MIT App Inventor. And fast forward to 2014, we grew to be the largest mobile app building platform in the world for non-developers. We had millions of people who had built tens of millions of apps. And we realized that this was a lot more than just a research project. This had grown to be what was the nascent beginning of the no-code movement as it is today. And from that, we formed Thunkable. The goal and what Thunkable is today is the no-code platform for anyone to build their own Android, iOS, and mobile web apps. And so we said, if you have an idea, if you have a problem, we can help you. We can give you the tools. We can give you the platform that enables you to go solve that problem with technology. And it's amazing to see how far it's come in such a short amount of time. But why does Thunkable matter? Why does no code matter? Because what we do is we make it really easy and we radically lower the bar for building an app. So what took days, weeks, months, and years now takes minutes, hours, and days. And how is this done? It's done through a variety of things, and I'll focus on how we've done it as Thunkable in specific. First of all, we made it really easy to live test. If you write code for a website and you built a website, and let's say you want to make a small change to some JavaScript, or you want to change a color quickly, you do that, you refresh your page, and it shows up. But on mobile, for a long time, the state of the art was you change a color, you change a little bit of your code, then you rebuild the app, you wait for a couple minutes, you install it on your phone, see if it looks right, and if it does, great, and if not, well, you try it again. So we said, hey, why don't we make it so that as you're developing, you can actually live see on your phone what's happening, and just really shortening that development time and those test cycles. The next thing we said is we've got to make this cross-platform. It has to work natively on Android, natively on iOS, and on web, because if we don't do that, then you'll be building once here, then you'll have to go do it again somewhere else and again somewhere else. And that's going to be, a real challenge, and especially making sure that they're the same is difficult. So we said, hey, we'll take that on us. You build us on Thunkable once, and you launch to the iOS, App Store, and all of a sudden the buttons will look like an iPhone button. And you launch to the Play Store, and the buttons will look like an Android button. And that was, really important to us. The next thing we said is not only does it need to be easy to build, it needs to be easy to publish. So we made it easy to publish directly to the Play Store and the App Store and to the web without needing to have all kinds of fancy technology. You can publish, to the Apple App Store without actually having a Mac and an iPhone. And you publish it under your own account. We made it really easy to say, whatever technology you have access to the internet. We're going to make it easy for you to make an app and publish it too. We make it really easy to collaborate. You don't just need to start from scratch. You can remix from templates. You can talk to the community. You can find tutorials and documentation and collaborate with your friends. And that was something that was super important to us. Next, we make everything really native. It's not a web view. It's not a hybrid app builder, but you actually make native mobile apps. And this was really important to us because we said, you need to actually build something that's the state of the art, that is what, real code can give you with the no-code tool. And so that was something we invested in. And lastly, we went down the path of saying, use blocks instead of code. And everyone has different approaches to no code. For us, it was using blocks to build functionality. By that, I mean, if you take a look at the right, this is a bunch of code to say, hey, I want to, touch a button and then have it change a color and start recording. Well, all that code on the right, all of a sudden, with a tool like Thunkable and other blocks-based tools, is now just what you see on the left. It basically says, when I touch a button, change my color and start recording. Taking a simple concept that was complicated in code and now making it simple in blocks. That, all put together is why no code matters so much, because it's taken all of these annoying things that don't actually, that aren't focused on your idea being built. We take all those complicated things, make them into something really simple so you can focus on the design and the creativity and the special sauce that makes your app different from whatever else is out there today. And in summary, how we do this is we provide access to everyone. So anyone can build their own apps. We and many other platforms start with free to use. So you can come in, tinker around. Is it the right thing for you? We have docs, tutorials, and a really helpful community. So you can get started without needing to get a college degree, without needing to take an AP or IB course. You can Google around, figure out what you need to get started, and go. And what's cool about it is while the bar to learn, the learning curve is way lower than regular code, the functionality is on par with what these advanced app development teams can do. You can do things like real-time voice translations using text-to-speech, speech-to-text, translation APIs. You can do image recognition, store your image, and do machine learning to understand what actually is going on in the image. You can use chatbots and have conversations and conversational chatbots. And you can do reservations. You can plug into your spreadsheets. You can plug into payment systems, right? So you can build with no code what many people think you need real code to do. And that, I think, is what makes no code so special. Just for a quick second now, I'll give you a brief overview of kind of where no code was until relatively recently. And there are many ways you can slice and dice this pie. This journey is kind of mapping through my own journey of no code app making. So it starts pre-2000. My advisor had built the World Wide Web, Tim Berners-Lee, and he said, okay, we have this web thing. And then people said, well, how do we actually build for the web? So in the early days, if you didn't know how to code, you kind of started with Dreamweaver and GeoCities. And I know I spent a lot of time with those tools. I don't know if anyone else did, but those tools were really amazing, very rudimentary, and just helped you start getting to go. And it wasn't really no code, but it was, what I would call low code at least. And then from there in the 2000s, you started seeing some real evolution. So these tools, 2003 you have WordPress, 2004 Squarespace, Wix, Weebly in 2006. And they say, hey, we can make it at least easy to build some simple, landing pages and web pages. And, kudos to WordPress for making a low code tool, but then saying, let's have templates and things like that to really move towards no code. And while I talk about the website builders, there are also a whole other slew of tools that came out in the 2000s. Things like robotic process automation tools, things like Automation Anywhere, Blue Prism, UiPath, e-commerce tools, things like Shopify, WooCommerce, BigCommerce, and so many other no-code tools. They all started coming about and making slow and steady progress. And we hadn't gotten to the point yet where really anyone could build a fully functional app, but it was really moving us in the direction of where we are today. And of course, I can't leave out Microsoft Excel. It's been around for 35 years and is still basically the gold standard in the quote unquote no code database. So if you don't know how to code, you don't want to set up a whole Oracle system, you use some Excel spreadsheets and Excel macros. And obviously, if you're using a tool that was made 35 years ago, there are some limitations. I guess as the UK government figured out recently when they were trying to track all of their COVID cases using an Excel spreadsheet and lost, I think, like 35,000 rows or something like that. But any which way, right? There are limitations, but this is one of the tools that's been around since the beginning. But since then, there's been a big push by entrepreneurs and by companies to have the people who know the problem the best actually solve the problem. So you're moving from saying, hey, I have a problem, I have an idea, what do I do? Let me now go draw something on a napkin or make it on a design tool, and then go give it to a developer who will go build it. And then they'll misunderstand me, so we'll have to go back and forth. Now, the people with the ideas, the people with the problems are actually empowered to solve them. And this is where no code is really transforming the landscape. It's making, from that 1 in 1,000 number I told you about earlier, it's now making it 10 in 1,000, 100 in 1,000. And I would say, even 900 out of 1,000. Now it's saying that if you have access to the internet and you have an idea, you too can be an app creator. And this is huge. And I'll talk about that a little more. But the tools that actually have come out of this have been these tools that have been really made for the citizen developers, or now no-code developers, as we call them. It's this new wave of tools that allows anyone not just to build landing page, but actually to build apps without code and with more power than ever before. Now, if you just Google no code landscape, you'll find, all kinds of diagrams, and people slice and dice it everywhere, every which way. There's, this is one of them that I found online. This is a different one that I found, which said, all no code tools are really broken into these 3 categories. And, there's some that focus on any specific category. There's ones like Thunkable in the middle, which kind of focuses on, all of these things, and some that have, different overlap. And, one that I showed you earlier, look like this. There's a whole different, bunch of ways you can slice and dice it. But basically, you have things that are focusing on every aspect of apps. You have web and e-commerce type app builders. You have mobile app builders like Thunkable. You have the consulting agencies. You have docs are now apps like Coda and Notion. You have apps to make apps connect to other apps, like you see on here, things like Zapier, etc. And it's really amazing now what kind of apps exist, and the fact that there are so many no-code app builders, meaning that whatever problem you have, there's probably a no-code tool to solve it today. And it's not just the little guys that are coming about. Big tech cares about this too. Google's got AppSheet, Amazon's got Honeycode, Microsoft's got Power Apps, Adobe has a whole suite of tools. Everyone, is taking notice of this and investing in tools that allow for no-code app creation. And what's amazing about these tools is that Thunkable and no-code in general just makes it possible, it being whatever the it is. You have a problem, you have an app, you have an idea, and we make it possible. We let you create fully functioning apps led by entrepreneurs, project leads, and designers, not by costly developers. And this isn't to knock on developers. I was an Android developer for a number of years prior to building this. But really, the developers can now focus on the newest cutting edge technology and not just focus on building a lot of things that have already been done. That stuff can now be abstracted into no code tools. Another big win is that you get fast feedback from customers. In the early days of a startup and idea, the biggest thing is how can you quickly iterate? How can you have an idea, develop that idea, get feedback on it, and do that process again? And with no code tools like Thunkable, you can get fast feedback from real customers and real stakeholders using real apps with real data. And that, I think, is something that's so powerful. You're no longer just looking at static mocks. You're no longer looking at a drawing on a napkin. You're dealing with real data and real ideas. And you can integrate with existing workflows. Many tools like Thunkable allow you to integrate with your existing APIs, spreadsheets, Firebase, your chat bots, your design tools. And that's something that's so, so powerful. In conclusion, we make it really easy to build, to test, and to scale. And how does no code actually level the playing field? In the most generic sense, it's three ways. It's cost, it's equipment, and most importantly, it's opportunity. There are a whole slew of costs: engineering, development time, hosting costs, equipment costs. You need the right, computer, the right laptop with the right amount of RAM. There's all kinds of costs to publishing and launching, etc. And with a tool like Thunkable, those costs are gone. You can now build your app. We can help you host. You can build it on whatever device you have. You can launch it with whatever tools you have. And we have amazing, huge, billion-dollar companies that use us. But I have a quote here from the executive director of the largest education nonprofit in rural India, Ekal Vidyalaya, where she said, hey, with Thunkable, we could focus our resources on getting the villagers that they work with technology rather than for worrying about our own tech needs, right? All of a sudden, we're saying, hey, if you have developers, if you have resources, if you have money, focus it on where it's needed most. If you have internal problems, if you have apps and ideas that are simple enough that can be solved by any of your internal staff, use a no-code tool. And this is a quote that I think really struck me, of saying, hey, by giving them these tools, they can now spend their money, their time, their resources on getting the technology to the most rural and remote villages in India, rather than for spending all their resources on their own in-house techniques. The next thing I talked about was equipment and maintenance. This one's pretty straightforward. You don't need hundreds of test devices at home anymore, because we take care of, making sure it works on every platform. You don't need the MacBook and the iPhone to make the iOS app. If you have an old OS you need to support or a new OS you need to support, you don't need to worry about that. You don't need to worry about keeping up with design guidelines, because we deal with the newest design guidelines. We make sure that if Google or Apple or someone launches, a new API that you need to pull in, a new OS that you need to support, we take care of all that under the hood. You can just rebuild and launch. And of course, opportunity. This is, I think, the biggest blessing for no-code tools, is anyone can now do it. Kids can now build something on their own. They don't need to wait to go get their undergrad and graduate degree in computer science and go to all these boot camps even. They can Google around and join a community, and they can all of a sudden build stuff on their own. Also, underrepresented groups, minorities, women that don't have access historically to the same tools as everyone else, now do. You can be at home and you can actually build this. You don't need to know another software engineer to get into software. You can go online and meet your own community through no-code tools. And most importantly, we remove all geographic barriers. You don't need to be based in these few main cities. You don't need to be in Silicon Valley. You don't need to be in Tel Aviv. You don't need to be in Bangalore. You can be anywhere. And if you look at Thunkable users, I think outside of North Korea, we have users in every single country. And they all love Thunkable because they have access to the same powerful tools as anyone else, anywhere else. But I think the best way to demonstrate all this is to actually show you some examples, some very relevant to the specific pandemic going on today, and a few others. One example I'd like to share with you of how we're actually, encouraging access and encouraging people to solve their own problems is related to a problem that exists right now. So there was a gentleman who said, hey, COVID has really hit our community, but we need to start opening businesses again, and the laws have made it safe to do so. How can we do it? Well, if we have an app that helps us track foot traffic, helps us track how many people are in, where they are in the store. That will help us really make sure that we're adhering to appropriate social distancing guidelines, we're reducing crowds, etc. So he built an app for his business and for his community that allowed you to track kind of how many users are coming in by the day and collect various statistics that could be accessed from a separate interface that other admins could use, and all of a sudden help his community open up more safely than they were able to before they had this app. Another example, there was a school in Rhode Island in the US that decided it was time to reopen again last month. But they were really afraid of getting people sick and having students and teachers get COVID-19. So they were in a pickle. They said, what do we do? Their solution? Let's build an app that allows us to efficiently and easily track what we need to track. We have specific needs. We know our community. We know where people are coming from. We know what tools we have in-house. Rather than using something off the shelf that doesn't actually work customized to our use case, let's build something that's custom for our school so that we can guarantee that students and school administrators have a safe and easy way to make sure that they're staying healthy during this crazy time. Another example I want to give you is across the world from that. There's a gentleman by the name of Anwar al-Haddad. Very, very innovative young gentleman based in Yemen. Now, for those of you who don't know, like I was unaware at the time Anwar started working on Thunkable, he is in Yemen, which is a place that has been in civil war since 2014. And it's been a pretty crazy war. And one of the things that's happened is to fight, various armies have been taking out power sources, because how do you weaken an enemy? Take out their power source. Makes a lot of sense. So the solution was, well, we're in Yemen. You know, it's a pretty sunny place. Why don't we get solar panels? And so there was actually a big movement to install solar panels, which was awesome. But what was the downside to that? People didn't know how to actually track their solar panels. How much energy do they have during the day? How do they tilt their panels? And no one was solving this problem. So Anwar, who had no coding experience, said, okay, I think I can solve this problem. He found Thunkable, started using Thunkable, realized, hey, he can connect to the panels using his Bluetooth sensor, using APIs, he can pull in weather reports to understand, you know, what the sun is going to look like today. And based on that, built an app in English and Arabic, launched it to the Play Store. And pretty soon after, 500,000 businesses and families were using his app to actually help solve their problems. The Minister of Energy of Yemen was so taken with Anwar's work that he actually gave him an award for helping alleviate Yemen's energy crisis. An amazing, amazing initiative that no one in any of these major tech hubs was looking at, yet affected the entire country of Yemen. And thanks to Anwar and no-code tools, he was able to build PV solar that is still actively used today. And the last example I'll give before opening it up was one that's actually local to near where I grew up, in a place called Nashua, New Hampshire. There were a whole bunch of refugees from the Congo and Uganda who were displaced and sent to Nashua, New Hampshire. And the city was really focused on getting them help, getting them tools that they needed to live their lives. And so at some point, the city said, hey, we don't really know what your problems are. What if we gave you access to Thunkable and no-code tools? Could you actually build apps to help solve your problems? And they built a whole slew of apps that now they gave to the city that the city never imagined. One example I'm showing you here is they said, hey, when we are in an emergency, we call, a police station, but we don't know our address. We don't know how to explain to them what the problem is. And so this actually made a chatbot interface where they could click, the various things that they were in. So for example, I need to talk to police, I'm in an accident, and it would use their location center to say, this is where you are. It would use other information to pull local data and say, this is what you need to say to the police. And that made it a lot easier for them to communicate effectively with law enforcement. A beautiful use of no-code tools that we maybe would have never built this app. It maybe isn't going to make millions of dollars, and so it's not going to be funded by a VC, but it is solving a real problem for a huge community. And I think this is really, these demos show me just a few samples of what we've seen on Thunkable and what no code can do to give us a better, more equitable society. I am so honored to be here today and be able to talk to you about how Thunkable and how no code in general is creating more equity and more access to technology around the world. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your time and open it up to questions.
Okay, thank you so much, Arun. We really appreciate it. And yeah, that was a really fantastic presentation. It was really cool to hear about all of those different applications. That one in Yemen really blew my mind. I can't believe that. So just because we have a tight time frame here, I'll just jump into kind of the most upvoted questions. And the top one that came in a lot, and a lot of people were asking about, I think because there's a lot of demand to jump onto your platform and play around with it and see how Thunkable really works. Do you charge different for web, iOS, and Android? And can you talk a bit about your pricing structure?
Yeah, absolutely. The way we work is very straightforward. It is it's free to get started, and you can actually build an app from beginning to end for free, because we want to make sure that you come to Thunkable and you recognize that it is as powerful as you need it to be. And so we don't like to, gate you out the door. And then we basically charge you for, more premium things. So if you want access to ongoing features, things like notifications and ads, as well as if you want access to publishing to web, because that's something that we actually help you host. So those are things we charge for. But if you say, hey, I have an idea, I want to build it on Android and iOS and launch it, it's totally free to use from beginning to end.
Very cool. And what about that publishing and launching onto the app or like the Google Play Store? How do you guys work with that?
Yeah, I think that's actually one of the coolest things about Thunkable, that I haven't yet seen something that I found more appealing. So if you want to publish to the App Store, we basically, we split it up. So for Android, we'll give you your app file. You can actually upload it directly to the app stores and allow people to use that. With iOS, something that I think is particularly cool about Thunkable is that normally you have to have a Mac, you have to have Xcode, you have to have an iPhone, you have to have all these things. With Thunkable, we make it really easy directly from our web interface, even if you don't have a Mac and an iPhone, et cetera, to say, hey, I have an Apple account, here's the credentials, go, and we will publish it directly to your account for you. So you're the owner of it, you're publishing it, and we just make a really easy WYSIWYG step-by-step click-through interface to publish it to those stores. So you get to own it, you publish it under your own account, and we just make it super easy. We package it up for you, make sure it has all the right signatures and everything, and then hand it off to you and let you run with it, because we believe that you should be the owner of the app that you create.
Very cool, Arun. Very cool indeed. Just one more question here, and then we're going to transition out to the next talk. The final question we have for you is, do you guys have a collaboration mode? Is it possible for multiple people to work on the same app at the same time?
So I will give you a semi-answer there, which is the main thing is stay tuned. But more specifically, what we offer today is we have a way that you can easily share and remix. So if I have an app that I'm midway through, I can send you a link to it, and you can look at it in real time as I'm building on it, and then you can fork it and come back. So think of it a little more like a GitHub or a version control type of thing, where I can actually see it real time. I can constantly update you, and we can fork and remix and merge. And hopefully relatively soon, we'll also have it where at the same time, you'll be working in the same interface.
Cool. Very good. Well, thank you so much for your time, Arun. I knew you gave a lot of your insights, not just on the panel, but here today, and we were super happy to hear from you. And thank you so much. I know you'll be there interacting with our participants, and thank you so much for your time today, Arun.
Absolutely, and I'll be online. They can definitely reach out to me. Find me on the web and on LinkedIn, and I'll be around and on the networking session. So looking forward to seeing the rest of the day. Thanks so much to you and the whole team. This has truly been a pleasure, and really appreciate you having me today.